All right, I think I'm recording. So I have this is a different project. This is called Class Demo Transition. That should be class, but it's all the same stuff. If we look at the animator, we can see some of the names have changed here. This was box idle, but this is still punch and this is still kick, and the transitions are still based on punch and kick. Uh, the code is still called boxing transitions. So I'm sorry for some of the changes. Like I think the names of these animations were different in the animations folder. I think that was box idle and this was head kick. Uh, it's just that I'm new to making tutorials for Unity, and I realize now I need to kind of make incremental saves of projects as I go, so that I don't end up having, because I worked this out, all this stuff out on the project I was demoing before. So this all should still work. The code is exactly the same. I don't remember now if this was different, if this said codes instead of script, because I was having trouble with the recording stopping when I hit capital S. So this may be different script, but the script itself is the same. And don't guess we need to review it, but we'll see it here. So let's just review it. So I created a variable called Ani, and then I made it equal to the animator component. I have two conditionals. If the input down key is E, then I set the trigger to punch, and if the input key code is Q, I set the trigger to kick, and both of those processes end with a timeout. So let's just test it. So there's my punch. It's a different punch now too. Sorry about that. But here's, I think, the same head kick. Very nice. All right, so now I want to make the character move around. I want to make him not be able to pass through walls or solid objects, but also I want to make him be able to climb ramps and steps. And I want to move him around, and when he moves, for him to go into a new animation. So let's get that animation. That's a first. So here I am at Mixamo. I'm just going to log in with my Adobe ID. And I think there was a run that I wanted. There's a one called maybe Slow Run, which is a kind of what this one looks like. Yes. So this is a nice little kind of trot, and that may help me, because I don't want this guy to move around too fast, because I don't want to build too big a world really. Before I download it, I probably want to change it to in place. There are ways I can make the animation actually move him using a kind of root action, but I'm not going to do that. So I've got in place checked here. Mirror will just flip it left to right. So I don't know if that's the kick might be useful. Okay, so I'm going to download. It's been a while since I've been here, so it says with skin, and it says 30 frames a second. I want 60 and without. Everything else is good. You may see this already downloaded, wherever this is going to take me to. So I'm going to put it in my downloads, and I think maybe one of these is the same run. This says slow run. I'll just leave that name, but I don't like these spaces. Not that it matters. I'm going to be deleting them, right? Save. So there, it should be there. I'll just minimize this. All right, so back to my animations. I want to import this asset, and there's slow run, import. Remember, it's a package here, so I'll click on the package, and on rig, I'll change from generic to humanoid. Under animation, I can change the name of the actual animation. This is the animation's logo. And I'll just call it run. Yeah, run's good. And I want it to loop. So this is a little bit different. Loops, so the idle loops and the run should loop because I don't want to have to hit um, the WAS keys over and over again to make him continue to run in the same direction. I want him to run until I tell him to stop. So I do want this to loop, and I think here I'll hit enter and then apply, and if I roll this down, we can see the animation is called run. I'm just gonna duplicate this with Control or Command D. And this time I'm just going to leave this here. We can leave these things. It's just that this is extra stuff that will make the project bigger. But for now, I will. And maybe it might be better practice because there are some things that I set here I might want to change later, and maybe this is the correct way to do it. So I'm going to leave it for now. The run can go in my animator. And so I want to go from idle to run, right click, make transition, just move the mouse, and from run to animator, make transition, move the mouse. This is the transition into run, and I don't want it to exit time. I want it to have a trigger. Now, in the classroom, I used a trigger, and I don't know if you noticed, or I talked about it actually. I talked about it. When he would transition from idling to running, there was a weird little glitch, like his legs wouldn't move. He would start moving, but his legs wouldn't move for a minute. And when he transitioned back from run to idle, there was a weird middle moment where he would kind of not know if he was running or boxing. I've since then found that and I think the rule might be, at least this is the one I have in my mind now, Booleans are for loop-to-loop transitions. This is just how I've kind of set it in my mind. And since idle is a loop and run is a loop, this seems to work better. And I will be transitioning out of the run loop into the idle, so I have a chance to turn the Boolean to false. Again, Booleans are either true or false. So I'm going to create a bool. Notice that it has a different shape that lets us know that there's a bool. We can tell. And I'm going to call this is running. So that's just a state that's either true or false, right? So the transition from idle to run should look like this. Is running is true. When it goes from idle to run, it's because he's running. And the transition from run to idle should look like this. Is running? False. When he's not running, he should idle. And so that really works. No glitches. I was so delighted to find that. I think I mentioned in class that I was going to try it, but we didn't have time in class. I need to change my code a little bit to make this work. If I try running this now, punch and kick probably will still work, but this won't. And I also have to change something else. So let's look at the game. Not the game, but the scene. Oops. Well, we can test it. E, Q, they still work. But WASD does nothing. Okay. So back in the scene. I want to add some things. I want to add some things to the scene, including a character controller for the character. But let's add some other things first. So in my hierarchy, I right click, and I'm going to create a 3D object, and I'll just say plane. All right, that plane. Over here I can see that the position is, not 0. So I'm going to make it 0, 0. That's the Y here, the green arrow. So that puts it at the floor level, and 0. I see, that's fine. Because I'm also going to make the scale something like 10. And not Y. I'm not going to change the Y scale because I don't know what will happen, and I don't care. I don't want to know. It should not scale up in this direction. So I've created a little ground plane for my character. That's nice. I'm going to also create a 3D object cube, and I'm going to put it kind of right beside my character and up in the air just a little bit, and I'll show you why. So it has, when it's selected, we can see that it has a box collider and a default material. We're not going to worry about materials yet. We're still prototyping. You can change the materials if you like, just to make it easier on your eyeballs, but I'm going to add something to this besides the box collider, so I'm going to add component. I believe this is the first time we've done this. And I don't want a character controller or a character joint or a new script, so I have to search. And what I want is a, we have a box collider, and so I want a collision. No, collider. I want gravity to affect it. Oh, here's, we can see physics, maybe, physics. Rigid body. There it is. Oh yeah, I couldn't think of it. So I added rigid body for one reason. If I can't. There's no check box to turn that off. That's interesting. If I delete it, remove component, and hit play, the box stays in the air. It doesn't. Gravity's not affecting it. So if I add the component rigid body, now I remember it. I have use gravity is checked, then and so that's just to demonstrate that. I'm going to also add a sphere, and it's for a very specific reason, which will be apparent later. So 3D object, sphere, and I'm going to try to put this in the same kind of parallel to the cube, so I'm just actually putting it in the cube to see if that, yep. So now I'll put it over here on this side. And it has a sphere collider, which means that he won't be able to pass through these once I have him set up with his character controller. But I also want to add the rigid body and make sure gravity is checked. So just to demo, absolutely no bounce, by the way. Okay. So I've added two objects that I can see him, bouncing off of when he tries to pass through them, or maybe something else will happen. All right. So here's my character. I want to add a component to him, and that's a character controller. So in the search, I just start typing what I want, and I get character controller. Now, I don't know if you see this, but it's actually like kind of down here for some reason. So the character controller is here, and it has a center. And I'm just going to raise the center to, I'll just write 1. Yeah, and that looks right. So his feet are kind of inside it there at the bottom. I don't know. We could maybe even, nope, can't do that now. Now it's controlling him, right? I mean, that's the, I can't control it separately. I'm going to say 0.75. How's that? Just see what happens there. Yeah, I don't know, but I think that's fine. Okay. And I can change the radius and the height and everything too, but I think that's all right. He's not going to bump into stuff with his head. Okay. Okay. Make me do it. There we go. I think that's good. So that's the character controller, and that will do a couple of things. One, it'll make him not be able to pass through the block there, but also I'll be able to move him with the character controller. I have to change the code now. So this is the code we've looked at previously, but I have some new things I have to add. I'm going to create a couple of variables, which are up here before the start function is even called. I want one called speed. So this will be a public float, and I'll demonstrate how that works. But as I mentioned last time, a text box will appear in the inspector, and I can change it there. So this is a speed that he was going to move at. So it's just a public variable. Float is a floating point decimal, so just a number. Speed is the name of it, and I have this equals 5 so that it won't be by default 0, so I don't have to add something in the inspector every time just to get the guy to move. And then I want another public float for the rotation speed, so because he'll also turn. So this speed I'll use to move him around, and the rotation speed you can see is quite a bit higher, and the reason for that is you turn faster than you can, you turn fast, and you move maybe more slowly. And I chose a fairly slow speed because it was a fairly slow run, but we can tweak it. And then I want another variable which can be private because I'm not going to futz with it. Is character controller, and this again, this is what it is. Just like a float is kind of what it is. The character controller is like Animator. It's functionality built into Unity, and this is the name I've given it. So Ani speed, rotation speed, and char control. These are all just what I use. I'll tell you why I say char. It's easy for me to remember, but I have to. It's tough for me to remember where the H goes. Sometimes I want to put an H in here. Anyway, that's just me. I really should just call this rot speed. This is kind of my style. Okay, so I've got my variables. I need a new something in the start, and I need to initialize something in the start function, and so char control, character control, is going to be equal to the component character controller. So that was hinted at here. So that's all I need in the start function. It gets a little more complicated down here in the update. I'm going to add some, I'm going to add just a little bit of comment here. So this is E key to punch. I think this is just good practice. Q key to kick. Oh, there we go. All right, and then I have some new stuff, and this all needs to go between this curly bracket and that one. So I'll create a little space here. I need. I'm going to move the character. So this is another comment. I go back and forth about putting spaces after the double slash. In general, I don't, but since I'm kind of doing it here, I'll just keep doing it. All right, so I need to get some information every frame about where my character actually is. So those will be floating point decimals. Actually, I don't know why I'm typing this. I have it over here. Because I'm obviously a terrible typist. Flower. Float horizontal input equals input get axis horizontal. So this horizontal input, I believe this is just a I could have called this anything else, but that's the variable I've given it. And then I have another float for the vertical input. It's a little weird to think of horizontal and vertical. We think of vertical as being up and down, but I'm not getting any up and down information for this character. I'm getting X and Z, and this is the vertical. It's like the plane, I guess, the vertical on the plane. And then I'm going to create a vector 3. So vectors are just variables that have 3 values, and they are x, y, and z values. So they're built in. Vector 3 is just a variable with 3 values, and I'm going to call it movement direction. It should equal. So then this is how I create a vector 3. So this is, I'm declaring it, but then I create it here. New vector 3, and these are the 3 values. The horizontal input, which is a variable I created, to get the axis horizontal information. 0 because I don't want the character to go up and down in this sense. I mean, jumping is a different idea. And vertical input, that's the I guess the Z uh, data that I've created this variable for here. So every frame of this game, it will be checking to find out where the character is in both the vertical and the horizontal, and then creating values in a vector 3 based on those. And then I actually copied this. This is a separate line. Movement direction normalized. So normalized just means rather than have it be a floating point decimal to make it an integer. So it's normalized. It's just a mathematical transformation from decimal point to raw integers. Okay. And then I need one more. I need one more if conditional. So I have some up here. If conditionals, they look like that. Same format. I'm just going to open this with if movement direction, and this is exclamation point equals vector 3 0. So exclamation point equals means does not equal. So if the character is moving, that's what this means. If the movement direction, which is here, if the movement direction isn't 0, then do these things here. I'm going to say I have here Ani set trigger, but it's not going to be. It's going to be set bool because I found that worked better. Ani set bool run, and then I have some rotation information that I have to put in here. So that has to do with a mathematical structure called a quaternion. I'm sorry about that. There's math. Okay, so quaternion to rotation. So this is the name I'm giving it. Equals quaternion look rotation. So look rotation is a function that's built into the character controller. So the character controller has a look rotation which way the character is looking. And so I get the movement direction is one of the values, and then vector 3 up. I don't know what that does. I don't know why it's up. I'm not sure what that means, up. But it came out of a tutorial I was following. Sometimes we just blindly follow. And then I need to transform out here. Transform.rotation equals the quaternion rotate towards. So it goes to the transform rotation to rotation, which is here, this quaternion, at the rotation speed, times multiplied by time dot delta time. Time dot delta time just puts us in the game time. That's what delta time is, and that's the same in all a lot of game situations. So, if I may, considering how little I understand of this, if the character is moving, if it's not moving at 0, if it's moving at something other than 0, then we set the bool to run, and that will make the animation of run. And then we have this stuff about rotation. So I have a variable here called toRotation equals quaternion.lookAtRotation, and the lookAtRotation is built into the it's basically whatever the character is looking at, and then this has movement direction, which is whatever direction we've got him moving in, and then vector 3 up. Those are the arguments. Sorry, don't know. And then we transform the rotation based on where he is, where we want him to be, and at the speed of the rotation speed. And guess what? Remember, I changed the variable. This is the variable, and notice it went. It said it was misspelled. because it didn't recognize it was a variable that hadn't been declared. So I declared it up here as rot speed. So it wants rot speed. That's nice. And then we have, that's the end of this if. Okay, I'm getting something weird here. It seems to not like this. But there's nothing missing here. But this void update. This does close the update. If we have the two curved curly brackets that end, that describe what to do. This if we have the two curly brackets, and inside them we have. This all looks okay to me. We'll find out. So after this, there is an else, because this is all about if he is moving, if he is not moving at 0. But if he's not moving, we need something else, and that's literally else. So if else structures are very common in programming. These are kind of sorts of functions, and the main thing is we just set this set bool. Right. One thing here is maybe this is what it doesn't like. Don't know. Run needs, since it's a bool, it needs do I want to capitalize it? TRUE? No. There we go. It needs a value. That's it. So, no, still some red here. All right, so the main thing is, since it's a bool, it needs a value. I can't just set a trigger to run. It's a bool. I have to set the bool to true. Else, if he's not moving, I want to set it to false. And I'm going to save this code, and something is still it doesn't like. I don't know. Okay, I saved it. It should be still applied to the Banana Man, and there I see. I click on Banana Man, and I still have yep, the boxing transitions. In the original tutorial, I wasn't sure that I was landing this on Banana Man. I should have checked over here. This is where it shows. Something is going to be wrong, though. Let's try it. Okay, and I've got compiler errors, but I don't think you can see those. Hang on just a second. Oops. There we go. And I think I can pull this down so we can see in the recording, right? So it's still looking for a curly bracket, it seems like. Well, what happens if I give it a curly bracket? Just throw one at it. So let's just see, maybe that is, okay, the public class, okay. So I had curly brackets here and here, but the public class curly brackets somewhere along the line, I was creating curly brackets and I started mistaking one of those closed ones for this one. Now, save. I do expect we'll see some errors, right? Okay, let's try it. Yeah, okay, for number one, he's off the ground, and it may have something to do. Run does not exist, okay. Oh, right, okay, I see. I made changes without carefully considering them, I think. Okay, so let's look at the code. Yeah, run. So it's really as is moving, isn't it? Right? And is moving. Because before I had in the class I had I'll save these. I had let's look at the animator. I had an idle and a run trigger. And I was doing the same exact thing as I'm doing in the code here, but I had, just run, and I didn't have a Boolean value because it wasn't Boolean. But now it is, and it needs to be named correctly. So that's good. Here we go. Try it again. I think he'd still be off the ground, though. Yep. I think that has to do with the character controller. And he's not running. He is turning. But run isn't happening. Is moving does not exist. Okay, maybe I didn't do this correctly. Is running. Right, okay. I could change it here or in the code. I think when I did this myself, I used is running. Is moving. But now it's running. Fine. Fine! Okay, and let's fix the let's fix this. He's off the ground. I made it character controller. I made it the radius should be the height. I changed the height. Should be 2. Good. And I'll just make this 1. I don't know which of those. Again, it's not being scientific to change 2 things, and if I have success, I won't know which one was the thing. But you know, science is overrated. Okay, he's now on the ground. That's much better. There we go. But he's not moving. Still got something, and I think actually I'm missing something in the code. Nice though. And he transitions smoothly. Although one thing I want to do is in the animator, just bring this bring this a little bit, make this a little bit shorter transition, and also really seemed long transitioning back into idling. Okay, I don't need to test that again. I need to figure out why he doesn't move. I might be able to pause this thing, but I don't think so. The recording software I'm using is doesn't have a pause that I can find. I did miss a line, I think. So I have this. This move character, I think, is misnamed. I think this is actually like rotate character, isn't it? Yeah, I'm doing something I don't normally do. I'm putting spaces after the double slashes, and I'm capitalizing. This is just not me. But it started with the Q's and the E's because really, I don't know, that's what they're called here. So yeah, I'm missing. Yeah. Move character. So simple move is like look rotation. Simple move is built into the character controller. I'm not sure that look rotation is a character controller thing, but I am sure about simple move. It's built into the character controller. And then it should go in the movement direction, which we define here. Should I redefine it someplace else? I think it's fine right here. Movement direction, which is defined down here, times speed, and speed is the speed of movement, whereas rot speed is being used here. Okay, save. Okay. Movement direction before. So I did have it in the wrong place, maybe. I'll put it down here. So I do. there we go. Control or Command X, copies and pastes. I mean copies and deletes, and then you can paste. But somehow it wasn't pasting. All right, move character control. So movement direction does have to be declared before I can use it. That makes sense. I saved this. We'll see. Great. Now that's great. It shows that he can climb over things. I'll show you in a sec here, but he can't go through things. So if I look at this dude in the scene and look at his character controller, I can see he has a 45-degree slope limit, so he can go up things that are 45 degrees but not steeper. That's neat, and I can change that here. He has a step offset, so he can go up things 1/3 of a. I'm guessing that Unity uses meters. I'm guessing that's a meter. So he can go up things 1/3 of a meter. So if I want to be able to take bigger steps, I can change that here, or the slope limit up steeper slopes. And notice here in the boxing transitions, I have speed and rot speed. So if I hit play. And this is how fast he walks. I'm talking about how fast he moves around the scene, not how fast his feet move, because that's stuck with the animation. But this looks very real to me, relatively. But if I decided I want it to go, I think maybe turning this off is best. If I want it to go like slower, 3. That might be more kind of accurate with the feet motions. So he can go up the sphere, I'm guessing, because it's like he takes a step up and then it becomes 45 degrees and he's over. Something like that. But the square has he can't step up, and it's a 90 degrees, so he can't go. So I might change the radius of this thing, because it looks a little bit like there's a force field around that cube. Try this. I meant to run into the cube here. Maybe that is a little bit better. I'm just going in circles. Okay, that's good enough. A bit of a long one, but we got a lot done.